All right. Yep. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, friends. Good morning, distinguished guests. Warm welcome to everyone today, and we are very, very grateful that you are joining us today. My name is Diana Torres. I'm the head of governance and participation at UNDP, and I'm going to be your MC for today. I will be guiding you all through today's agenda. I'm very, very happy to be here with you. For UNDP and for the co-organizers of the Papi program and Papi report launch, it is an honor to welcome you all today. We really highly appreciate your interest and your time to attend this important conversation that is about to start today on governance, public administration performance at national and local level. Today's launch is taking place in a hybrid format, meaning that we have about 300 participants joining us here from the Daewoo Hotel in Hanoi, and we have about 100 participants joining us online via our Facebook and UNDP social media channels. So welcome also to those that are joining us online, and thank you for having the time to join us today. For those who are joining for the first time, the Papi report launch, allow me to share a little bit of a short overview of what the Papi program is about. The Vietnam Provincial Governance and Public Administration Performance Index, or Papi in short, it is the country's largest annual citizen-centric and nationwide policy monitoring tool. Papi captures Vietnamese citizens' experiences and perceptions to benchmark the performance and quality of policy implementation and service delivery of local governments. Annual Papi reports are the results of a strong partnership between the Center of Community Support and Development Studies, CECODES, the Center for Research and Training of the Vietnam Fatherland Front, Real-Time Analytics, and the United Nations Development Program in Vietnam. Since its inception 12 years ago, the Papi program research has received financial and substantive support from different development partners in Vietnam. Since 2018, the Australian Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade has been Papi's major partner, along with the Embassy of Ireland, and we are very, very grateful for their support. The UNDP, the United Nations Development Program in Vietnam, has been both the co-implemented and the co-funding of Papi since 2020. Papi has grown steadily thanks to the views and experiences of more than 146,000 citizens who has been selected randomly to represent the Vietnamese population. We have followed state-of-the-art sampling procedures and research methods to conduct Papi surveys. The 2020 Papi survey round was officially kicked off in June 2020, and it was run in the middle of a very complex context last year, in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. However, despite all of these challenges of last year, with an effective collaboration from the Vietnam Fatherland committees, from the central to the grassroots levels in 63 provinces, and with the substantive advice from the Papi advisory members, we were able to share with you today the results and findings of the Papi survey in 2020. I hope you all have your Papi 2020 report with you in your hands, and if you are connecting online, it is now available online for download. We really appreciate the participation of more than 14,732 respondents in 2020 who shared their reflections on how they perceive and experience local government performance in terms of governance, public administration, and service delivery in 2020. For today's event, it is my great pleasure to introduce some special guests and keynote speakers that will be joining us today. Online is joining us Ms. Wiesen, who is the UNDP resident representative in Vietnam. UNDP, as many of you know, has been since the inception of Papi responsible for ensuring the application of international standards and as well ensuring advocacy efforts of Papi findings reports. Mrs. Caitlin is joining us today via Zoom. She just returned from the US, and according to the COVID-19 preventive measures, she's completing her quarantine period tomorrow. So we have the luxury to have her online. We also have Ms. Robyn, Mudie, Australian ambassador to Vietnam. The Australian Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade has been our major partner since 2018, and we are very, very grateful for your support. Mr. McCullagh, Irish ambassador to Vietnam. The Embassy of Ireland and Irish Aid has been the co-founding partner since 2018. Thank you so much for your support. And Dr. Nguyen Hu Sung, standing Vice President of the Central Committee of the Vietnam Fatherland Front. The Vietnam Fatherland Front committees and agencies from the central to the grassroots level have been instrumental to Papi's development since 2009. Let me also warmly welcome representatives from the party, representatives from the state, government, National Assembly, and Vietnam Fatherland Front agencies at central level agencies. Leaders from the 63 provinces and citizens who are present here today in the auditorium or who are following us through our online channels. Members of the Papi Advisory Board who are joining us online and here offline from the auditorium. Representatives from the mass organizations, political, social political organizations, and associations working for the rights of people with disabilities and ethnic minorities. Representatives from embassies and international development corporations in Vietnam. Representatives of domestic, international research and training organizations. Representatives of international and Vietnamese NGOs. Papi Research Program members who are national and international researchers, field controllers, enumerators, and research program management. Thank you all for being here today. We are ready to start with the agenda for today. The agenda is structured into 3 sections. The first section will have keynote speakers delivering their opening remarks. In the second section, the Papi research team will be sharing with us the findings about governance and public administration performance at national and provincial level from 2011 to 2020. And there will be a discussion also on issues of greatest concern in 2020. The last session is the Q&A session, questions and answers about 2020 Papi. And we hope that you will be taking notes of your questions or comments because there will be in this section you will be able to pose or raise any questions that you may have. Once again, today's event is being live streamed via UNDP's channels and Papi Vietnam's Facebook fan pages with the links, and the links has been sent out with the invitations to everyone. We welcome all of you to follow us in our online and to post your tweets or Facebook posts using our hashtags. And let me also acknowledge the assistance from our professional and sign language interpreters. Your contribution will make today's launch more participatory and inclusive event. So without further ado, let me welcome the keynote speakers to deliver the opening remarks today. To begin with, I have the pleasure to introduce Mrs. Wiesen, UNDP resident representative, who will open the launch today. Caitlin, as I just said, just returned from the US and will be joining us today via Zoom. And Mrs. Caitlin, we have you there. The mic is all yours.
Thank you. Dr. Nguyen Hu Sung, Standing Vice President of the Vietnam Fatherland Front Central Committee. Your Excellency, Ms. Robyn Mudie, Ambassador of Australia to Vietnam. Your Excellency, Mr. John McCullagh, Ambassador of Ireland to Vietnam. Excellencies, ambassadors, and other representatives of diplomatic missions, distinguished participants from central state agencies and ministries, leaders and representatives from 63 provinces across Vietnam, representatives from the Vietnam Fatherland Front, mass organizations, non-governmental organizations, and the media. Distinguished guests, good morning and welcome to the launch of the 2020 report of the Vietnam Provincial Governance and Public Administration Performance Index, better known as Papi. I am very pleased that the launch today is taking place at a critical juncture for Vietnam with the transition to the newly formed government for the term of 2021 to 2026. And we trust that the findings of the 2020 Papi report will continue to inform and help further improve provincial governance performance. I'm also very pleased that the launch is taking place in hybrid format to enable broad participation, especially from the 63 provinces. Since its inception 12 years ago, the Papi program has continued to grow and adapt to new development priorities. It is now the largest citizen-centric and nationwide policy monitoring tool in Vietnam. Over the years, Papi has collected more than 100,000 responses from ordinary citizens on their opinions and experience with national and local governance, public administration, and public service delivery. The overall aim of Papi is to improve the quality of government functions, the responsiveness, transparency, and accountability of public institutions, as well as to ensure access to information and quality services. These are aims that also mirror the mission of UNDP in Vietnam. As mentioned earlier, Papi datasets now cover 2 full government terms, the 2011 to 2016 term and the 2016 to 2021 term. The data provides rich information on the overall status of Vietnam's governance and public administration efforts based on the direct feedback from citizens as the end users of government services. Together with our national partners, we can use Papi data to examine and anticipate governance trends, identify policy gaps that can inform policy making and motivate improvements in government performance. It is well known that good governance provides a strong basis to improve citizens' trust in their local governments and to ensure their participation and contribution to Vietnam's sustainable development. There is no doubt that 2020 has been a turbulent year for the world and for Vietnam. 2 waves of the COVID-19 pandemic struck the country, coupled with unprecedented natural disasters, with historic floods in the central region of Vietnam last October. Despite these challenges, the Papi research team was able to gather the perspectives of more than 14,000 respondents. This is the largest number of citizens to participate since the survey was first conducted nationwide in 2011. It brings the total number of respondents in the past 12 years to almost 150,000 people. For the first time, the 2020 survey also gathered responses from citizens with temporary residence registration status. Over 300 internal migrants were surveyed in 6 provinces. Their voices have added additional perspective to the overall picture of local governance and public service performance. I am also delighted to see that Papi findings are increasingly being used and mentioned in government documents, ranging from the Politburo, ministries, agencies, the National Assembly, and different socio-political organizations. Papi is viewed as providing a fair, neutral, and quality monitoring and evaluation system, supporting efforts to improve governance performance and public service delivery. To date, we are very pleased that all but one of Vietnam's 63 provinces have issued action plans, directives, or decisions to continuously improve Papi results. I am also very pleased to share the new features of the 2020 Papi report. These include the findings on the performance of local governments across 2 terms. Secondly, the experience of internal migrants in accessing services in receiving provinces. And thirdly, voter perception of the role of women in leadership. As the government embarks on a new term, Papi provides rich and deep data sets on citizens' perceptions of local government in each of the provinces to review and further improve their performance across the 8 dimensions of governance. Later this morning, you will hear more detailed analysis about the 2020 Papi report survey results and governance trends. For now, I would just like to highlight 4 findings from the report that I found particularly insightful. Firstly, it is encouraging to see that during the 2016 to 2021 government term, there has been consistent incremental improvement in governance and public administration at the national level. In particular, 2 of the 8 Papi dimensions have improved over the last 5 years. This includes the dimension on control of corruption in the public sector and vertical accountability towards citizens. For example, citizens were less likely in 2020 to see bribes as necessary to secure public services or public sector employment compared to 2019. For the vertical accountability towards citizens dimension, there was a spike in 2020 in the number of citizens contacting local officials, in particular village heads and People's Council delegates. What is interesting to observe is that these improvements in governance have contributed to Vietnam's effective response to the COVID-19 pandemic. This is corroborated by the report, which demonstrates that greater citizen participation and the continued decline in corruption in 2019 were likely to have positively impacted Vietnam's ability to respond to the pandemic in 2020. In the 2020 Papi survey, we also asked respondents their opinion on how each level of government handled the COVID-19 pandemic. Overall, citizens gave very high ratings to local government's responses to the pandemic in 2020. More than 90% of respondents were satisfied with local government's handling of COVID-19. This high consensus clearly suggests that improving the quality of governance will prove extremely useful for Vietnam in managing other unexpected emergency situations similar to COVID-19. However, despite Vietnam's successful containment of COVID-19, the virus has clearly had an impact on citizens' lives. The second finding I would like to highlight focuses on the top issues of concerns for citizens in 2020. About 18% said poverty and hunger were the most important issues in 2020. Concerns about health, health insurance, economic growth, and employment also surged to the top. At the same time, household economic satisfaction in 2020 declined for the first time in 10 years of Papi surveys. Worries about corruption and environment reduced, but remained among the top 10 issues of concern to citizens. Another important finding is the low uptake on online public services through e-government portals. Although access to the internet improved in most of the provinces in 2020 compared to 2019, a large divide between access to the internet and access to local e-government portals for administrative services remains for citizens. Therefore, advancing citizen-centric e-governance is an area that will require urgent attention. Here we are supporting local governments through what we call the Citizen-Powered Innovation Initiative. This was jointly developed with the Fulbright School of Public Policy and Management, and you will hear more about it later today. Thirdly, I would like to emphasize findings related to internal migration and governance. As mentioned earlier, for the first time ever, Papi surveyed migrants on their governance experience. This led to some novel insights. It is clear, for example, that there is a substantial gap in temporary residents' experience with governance compared to permanent residents in the same village. In particular, migrants have less access to formal channels of participation and accountability, less access to information, and are more exposed to requests for bribes from public officials. In order to narrow these gaps, provinces receiving internal migrants need to focus on addressing the information needs and expectations of both permanent and non-permanent residents. The current efforts to create national database systems on population and to issue digitized citizen identification cards are important steps in the right direction. Having a universal identification number will enable citizens to access governance and public services equally, regardless of their place of residence within the country. Fourthly, with elections coming up in May for the National Assembly and People's Councils, 2021 marks a critical year to secure equitable representation in the two elected bodies. Papi research shows that men and women bring different views and concerns to decision-making. While women are more concerned about poverty reduction, healthcare, and education, men are more likely to focus on economic growth, national security, and corruption as primary concerns. Both perspectives are essential. However, the 2020 Papi data also shows the existence of biases against women candidates compared to male candidates for National Assembly and People's Council delegates. This bias is more accentuated for village heads who play an increasingly crucial role as interlocutors between the state and citizens. Therefore, it is suggested that Vietnam introduces gender quotas for these elected positions as a way to improve women's participation and representation at all levels. Finally, the 2020 Papi report provides detailed findings within subdimensions and indicators. Deeper dives into these findings, rather than just comparing aggregate dimension scores, are key for provinces that wish to respond to their citizens' concerns and expectations effectively. As the cover page of the 2020 Papi report shows, Papi consists of multiple indicators that should be explored by provincial authorities to understand their citizens' feedback and expectations. We hope that the report will help unpack local priorities for provincial leaders to address in the 2021-2026 government term. Papi would not be where it is today without the support of a range of stakeholders, including Vietnamese citizens, the Papi Advisory Board, with members coming from public authorities at all levels, the media, as well as international partners in Vietnam. On behalf of the implementing partners, UNDP, the Vietnam Fatherland Front, the Center for Community Support and Development Studies and Real-Time Analytics, I would like to express our deep appreciation for the tremendous support and encouragement. Also, our special thanks go to our core development partners, the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade of Australia and the Embassy of Ireland for their support and funding of the Papi Research Program. We especially thank the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, DFAT, for expanding their support for Papi until at least 2025. We look forward to your support for Papi to continue serving as a useful tool to listen to and share the opinions and aspirations of the Vietnamese people in shaping a future that is inclusive, equitable, and sustainable. Thank you. Xin cảm ơn.
Thank you so much, Caitlin. I think we are left very provoked to listen and discuss the findings of Papi, 2020 Papi report today. So now, moving on with the agenda, I have the pleasure to invite Mrs. Robyn Mudie to the floor to deliver her keynotes. Mrs. Robyn, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. Kính thưa ông Nguyễn Dũng, Phó Chủ tịch Ủy ban Trung ương Mặt trận Tổ quốc Việt Nam, Ms. Caitlin Wiesen, UNDP Resident Representative, representatives from the National Assembly, distinguished leaders from provinces across the country, excellencies and ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen, and distinguished guests joining today's launch online. Thank you very much for the opportunity to participate in today's launch of the Provincial Governance and Public Administration Performance Index 2020, or Papi as we like to call it. Although we are yet to move to a post-COVID-19 new normal, I'm very pleased that following the January COVID-19 outbreaks, we're able to gather here in this ballroom for today's launch. This is testimony to Vietnam's strong response to COVID-19, which has been truly impressive. Coincidentally, it was in this very ballroom in the Daewoo Hotel where the 2017 Papi report was also launched, and 2017 marked the year when Australia began our support to Papi in partnership with the United Nations Development Programme and the Vietnam Fatherland Front. After 3 years of partnership, I'm pleased to say that our decision last year to extend our support to Papi through our Oz for Reform programme until 2025 was an easy one to make. It was easy because over the last decade, the collective input of more than 146,000 Vietnamese citizens has helped Papi to become a trusted tool that supports evidence-based policy making. Papi has also become a platform for citizens to encourage provincial authorities to improve their performance. And it has become an important accountability mechanism to promote stronger institutions, better service delivery, and greater responsiveness. All of the above factors have been reflected clearly in the performance of provincial governments in the past few years. But more importantly, this past year, they have become a prominent measure of the capacity of Vietnam's public systems to effectively respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. The key findings of the 2020 survey show that there has been an improvement in perceptions of provincial governance and public administration performance. In a particularly significant result, findings from the 2020 Papi report also show a correlation between good governance and effective pandemic responses. And this demonstrates the very tangible benefits that good governance brings. And nowhere is this more evident than where improved governance has contributed to Vietnam's very successful response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Looking ahead, a continued focus on improving governance will be vitally important to Vietnam's future administration and development. Improved governance will not only support Vietnam's reform agenda and broader economic ambitions to become an advanced economy by 2045, but it will also ensure that Vietnam is better prepared to manage other unexpected emergency situations that arise. Australia's support to Papi recognises that the policy challenges faced by governments around the world are complex, and that many of the policy solutions proposed to address these challenges are contested and involve trade-offs. COVID-19 has only exacerbated these challenges here in Vietnam and across the globe. We firmly believe that policy making is easier and building consensus for change is simpler when governments have trusted and robust data. Good data gives policymakers confidence that they're making informed decisions based on the latest evidence available. Constructive feedback, which is also at the core of the Papi process, also ultimately leads to better public policy. It streamlines implementation and it encourages all of us to improve our performance. The inclusion of new activities under Papi in the 2020 survey has demonstrated its responsiveness and given new qualities to the index. Last year, Papi added a number of new activities, including the study on citizens' perceptions on the Government of Vietnam's 62 trillion dong support package. The report also features a section on the roles of women representatives in Vietnam's development in the 2016 to 2021 term, findings about National Assembly delegates. And it also includes the Citizen-Powered Innovation Initiative, the CPII. This is a bottom-up approach to innovation in local governance that will be presented to you all later by Dr. Vu Tang Tu Ain in the latter part of this launch. These new sources of data add further to the richness of Papi as a true measure of provincial government performance. I myself was very pleased last year in July to join in the workshop on improving access to e-public services for citizens through the National e-Service portal in Hue City. This was a partnership between UNDP and the Office of Government to enhance local government's performance in governance and public administration. to accelerate e-governance and e-services, to encourage citizens in decision-making through real-time feedback mechanisms, to scale up good practices in response to COVID-19 impacts, and to promote women in leadership to ensure gender equality in politics. And I'm sure you will agree that all of this is particularly important in the context of COVID-19 and the future that we all face, when access to online services has become vital. And none of this data would have been available without Papi sitting behind it. I'm very pleased to see that the Papi 2020 results shows a continued positive trend in the general performance of governance across Vietnam, particularly in indications covering vertical accountability and control of corruption in public service delivery. However, the 2020 Papi report also points to areas that still need improvement, including participation at the local level and public service delivery dimensions. This is particularly notable in the context again of COVID-19 and the other disasters that hit central Vietnam in 2020. The survey also shows that women have different experiences of governance than men. As you may know, gender is a focus area for the Australian government's aid program in Vietnam. We work closely with the Vietnamese government across many agencies and also with a wide range of partners and stakeholders to promote and support women's empowerment and gender equality. Strong representation of women in leadership is vital to effective leadership and to governance, and therefore we hope that the coming 2021 National Assembly and People's Council elections will provide an opportunity for more women to be elected to legislative and leadership positions. In terms of the Papi 2020 report, its launch closely follows the inauguration of the new government of Vietnam, which is notable in including new leaders who come from localities which have experienced successful economic development over the past decade. So I hope that for the new leadership, Papi provides useful and timely insights to Vietnam's various development challenges, and that going forward, Papi will continue to inform and help further improve provincial government performance. I congratulate the Papi team, the international and local experts who have been involved, for overcoming all of the challenges in the 2020 survey, which occurred quite remarkably in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. I must say that when I see pictures of surveyors meeting with interviewees in face masks, I feel humbled by their dedication, which has most certainly contributed to the quality and the trustworthy nature of the data in the Papi report this year. The work of all the teams has assured the depth, independence, quality and accessibility of the data that Papi presents, and this is unparalleled in Vietnam and indeed around the region. Papi truly is a veritable goldmine of data that provides stronger institutions, stronger accountability and better service delivery. Australia is very proud to contribute to this important process, and the evidence in the Papi report this year, which provides an evidence-based approach to policy and decision-making, will continue to provide very strong foundations for Vietnam's future development and governance. And we encourage administrators at all levels of government around the country to make the best use possible of the data in Papi. Thank you once again for the opportunity to participate today. Australia is very proud to support this important process, and I look forward to the next decade of Papi assisting Vietnam's evidence-based policy making, improving its government performance and promoting accountability. Finally, I'd like to note this year's slightly tongue-in-cheek Papi logo, which you can see on the screen, which has 2 coronavirus symbols in place of the zeros for 2020. Now, I very much look forward to next year's logo showing a vaccination needle in place of the 1 for 2021, and I hope that by 2022, Sao Kern Mua Choi Lai Sang, the sky will be bright again after the rain, and that we will not need to see any reference to COVID-19 in the logo at all. And on that note, I wish you all good health and happiness and a successful year in 2021. Thank you very much. Xin cảm ơn.
Thank you, Mrs. Robyn Mudie, for your ideas on the Papi 2021 cover page. I think that's a great idea. We'll take it forward for sure, and for your support and reflections on Papi 2020 report. So allow me to welcome Mr. John McCullagh, as the next keynote speaker to the floor. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. I want to say thank you very much for the invitation this morning, which I was delighted to accept. I was delighted for a few reasons. Firstly, Public Administration Performance Index is a little bit of a mouthful, but Papi is a fantastic acronym, so I'm particularly fond of the report. But more importantly, it's a hugely impressive exercise, Papi, in terms of the scope and the detail. Secondly, it's hugely impressive in terms of its value for policy making, how it informs that. It's important as a principle, and also for my embassy, it's important. The same as Australia, we're involved in gender equality and areas like that, so it helps us to do our job a little bit better. Last night, I was looking through some of the headline figures. The one that caught my eye, the one that I remember, was 14,732, which is the number of interviews conducted this year. That's the largest number to date in the 12 years of the survey. Now, if you took those 14,732 interviews, they're 45 minutes each, and you put them back to back, and you run them over 24 hours a day, and you start now, we would probably be finished around about mid-July of next year. So I think that helps to put in context the scale of the exercise. It's enormous. Now, to undertake a survey of that size is daunting enough, but as others have said, to do it in the context of COVID is incredible. And I have to say, well done to everybody involved. It's remarkable. And it's great as well, from a COVID perspective, to see a full room. We don't see this in Ireland. This is a thing that we look forward to again, but it's great to be here in Vietnam and to have the good fortune. The survey, I was looking as well, the survey is almost 50-50 in terms of participation of men and women, which is great. And it has the views for the first time of internal migrants. So that means it's more comprehensive in terms of its catchment group. A survey like this generates an enormous amount of information, a huge database. Now, I used to work in a past life in an institute in Ireland called the Economic and Social Research Institute. I spent a couple of years there, and we worked on an enormous database of 10,000 second-level students and about 100 fields of data for each. So we had this enormous database. And back then, our computers weren't as advanced, so you'd have to set the computer to analyze, and it might take the weekend to do it. But the scale of this survey is even bigger. The difference between this survey and the one that I was involved with is that this is the 12th year. So whereas we had a snapshot, with Papi, you have a longitudinal database. So you can see trends over time, and that's particularly important, and I'll come back to that in a moment. It's a treasure trove of information for everybody, for government, national, local, for policymakers, for researchers, for anybody with an interest in service delivery and in governance. And I know this all sounds fascinating, but it's important to emphasize that the product of all of this is not a nice fat report that sits on the shelf. This is a report that drives policy. And I know that the vast majority of provinces have already developed action plans to respond to Papi. And it's no accident that over time there's an upward trend, a positive trend, and that's good to see. There's what you might call healthy competition between the provinces in terms of performance, and that's a good thing. Everybody wants to finish high in the league table. But I think it's also important to say to provinces maybe that are not high in the league table, the important thing is to improve over time. There's 12 years of data there, and to look and to see how that performance is changing over time. In terms of principle, there's an important principle here too, I think, and that's down to the involvement of people for whom services are delivered on their behalf by the provinces. And Papi is a way to get feedback, to get the feedback from people and for them to have a say, and for them to say, listen, when I had this service last year, I wasn't happy and whatever, because everybody needs feedback. Everybody needs to know whether the service that they're delivering is good or bad. Why is this important to Ireland? It's important to Ireland because, well, we've been funding it since 2018. Last year, in addition to our regular funding, for the 2020 report, we invested a further 100,000, and that was for work in two areas. We work with ethnic minority communities in 5 provinces across Vietnam, and as part of our work, we work to ensure active engagement of women, and that for us is the second strand. As Caitlin said earlier in the introduction, the issue of gender bias against women in terms of their participation in politics is something that would be useful to address, important to address. It's important to address it for a couple of reasons. It's important to address it from a fairness point of view, from an inclusiveness point of view, but also because, frankly, it promotes better decision making. And we know this in Ireland. You know, my country has in the past been blighted by conflict. Back in 1996, 2 women from opposite sides of the divide came together and they formed what was called the Northern Ireland Women Coalition. Now, they didn't have partisan views, but they were focused on the issues and objective things. And they did this because they wanted women's voices to be heard. The coalition secured seats at the negotiation table for what became in 1998 the Good Friday Agreement. And that's the foundation for peace in Ireland. Now, at times that peace is rocky, but it would have been less sustainable had these women not been involved in the coalition. The other reason, of course, is that, as Caitlin said in introduction, you know, women have, in general, different priorities. They focus on different issues that maybe risk being overlooked if they're not involved. So there are practical reasons to involve women. For Ireland as well, you know, we're engaged in the women and peace and security area. This year, we're sharing membership of the UN Security Council alongside Vietnam, and that's a particularly important area for us. Everything that we do here in Vietnam, we try to do it by looking through a gender lens. So we work, for example, in the area of politics with an organization called AFIDA to try to promote women's engagement in politics. And as I mentioned already, we work with ethnic minority communities to try and promote women's involvement. Papi is 12 years old now. I hope it will continue to flourish and to grow in its teenage years. It's essential as a source of information. It's an essential input to quality public administration and governance in Vietnam, and I hope it will continue to play an important role in that. My embassy is now in the process of developing a five-year strategy, a new 5-year strategy to take us up to 2026. And we're a small country and a small partner, so we have to look carefully at where we might be able to add value. So from my point of view, coming here today is very useful to listen later on to the main findings from Papi, and that will help us in our embassy to do our job better and to help us decide whether there's an opportunity for us to continue to provide support to Papi. Thank you again for the invitation, and thank you very much for your time.
Ambassador McCullagh, thank you so much for your support and your words, very inspirational. And last but not least, it is my pleasure to invite Dr. Nguyen Hu Sung, Standing Vice President of the Central Committee of the Vietnam Fatherland Front, to the podium to share his keynotes. The floor is yours, Mr. Sung.
distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Standing Committee of the Central Vietnam Fatherland Front, I would like to extend our warmest welcome to all of you and good morning to all of you. Ladies and gentlemen, in 2020, we witnessed a series of COVID-19 outbreaks and a series of natural disasters that hit the center of Vietnam. And the project team has overcome those challenges without and completed the project without compromising timeliness, quality, and standards of the research. And we have listened to 14,732 respondents, the largest number of respondents ever since 2011. And so far, the total respondents interviewed by Papi during the last 12 years amounted to 146,232 people. This demonstrated enormous efforts, hard work, seriousness, responsibility, and rigor by the members of the project and stakeholders. And Papi has also taken this opportunity to collect people's feedback on the responsiveness of local governments to COVID-19 pandemic. And I'm very impressed with what the research team has done. As you know, public administration reform is among the 3 focus areas of strategic breakthroughs of the Communist Party and the government of Vietnam. And one of the strategic goals of our public administration program is to build a system of public administration institutions which is seamlessly integrated, ethical, strong, modern, efficient, effective, working for democracy, rule of law. And therefore, analysis and research of public administration and governance performance at the provincial level provides an important channel of information that reflects the concerns and the aspiration of people at the grassroots levels, and it is very helpful for policymakers to stay responsive. And since 2009, Vietnam Fatherland Front, from the central level to the local levels, have worked very closely with UNDP and the Center for Community Support and Development Studies, Torres, to conduct annual Papi survey in all 63 provinces and cities. We are very proud to be part of the team. And as an organization representing the interest and the rights, the legitimate interests and rights of the people, we are highly committed to participation and in and support to Papi, because the goal of the project is highly relevant for the mission of the VFF. And we are very happy to see that the analysis results of the project has been utilized by a government agency, local authorities, and Papi results has been widely referred to by in the meeting and the discussion of the Communist Party, the government, the National Assembly, the Politburo, political social organization. Papi has established its reputation as an independent, objective, and quality system of indicators that serve the purpose of improving governance and public service delivery. Papi findings have played a very important for us at the Vietnam Fatherland Front in implementing the rules and regulation for overseeing and providing social critics, which is under the decision 217 of the Politburo. The oversight work help us to detect gaps, weaknesses, and concerns in the performance of the local authorities, and for them to take their corrective actions. And as we are entering the new term of government 2021-2026, we hope that Papi will continue to provide the highly needed and highly trusted data for local governments to improve their governance and delivery of public services, contributing to enhanced accountability and modernization of public administration and evidence-based policy making. And we also hope that Papi will play an instrumental role in promoting the role of Vietnam Fatherland Front in providing oversight and social critics. We hope to continue the partnership with UNDP and international development partners to continue the success of the last 12 years so that we can bring greater satisfaction to citizens. And may I wish all of you fruitful event today, and we look forward to further collaboration with you. Thank you.